My parents chose my brother's award over visiting me after a car crash. Now they want my savings to bail him out of a fraud scandal. I refused about 2 weeks ago. I, 32, was involved in a horrific car accident. Another automobile struck me from the side as I was making my way home from work. The force of the impact caused my automobile to overturn. I was later told by the paramedics that I was fortunate to be alive. I ultimately needed emergency surgery due to internal bleeding, 2 cracked ribs, and a damaged leg. After the procedure, I stayed in the hospital for a week to recuperate and try to make sense of things. It was difficult to be in the hospital, both mentally and physically. All I wanted was for my parents to come see me as soon as I woke up. I assumed that as soon as they learned about the accident, they would rush over. Even though I didn't anticipate them staying the entire time, I would have been so grateful for a visit. Instead, they were absent for days. I waited for them to stop by, or at least give me a call, but they didn't show up. Before I even received a text from them, I believe it was 4 days. To answer your question, my parents were told what had transpired. The hospital informed me that they had contacted them several times and that they were my emergency contacts. The day following my admission, the hospital was able to contact my parents, but the nurses reported that they appeared unconcerned about the situation. That obviously upset me a lot, but I attempted to explain it away by saying that perhaps they were too busy or that something else had come up. Fortunately, my phone was still with me because my possessions survived the collision. Every day, at intervals of 5 to 6 hours, I texted my parents, but I never heard back. In the hospital, every day was a nightmare. I tried to give my parents a lot of wiggle room because I really wanted to see people I knew, but it became more difficult every hour. Fortunately, I wasn't entirely alone because my pals, who reside in other states, were able to get in touch with some family members who lived nearby. A family acquaintance came to visit me on the 6th day in the hospital and remarked, in passing, how wonderful it was that my brother was receiving recognition for his efforts at an awards ceremony. I didn't know what she was discussing. She filled me in, but she appeared perplexed that I didn't know. As it happens, my parents didn't come to see me. Instead, they were at my brother's awards ceremony. They were aware that I was in the hospital, but instead of helping me through a difficult period, they decided to attend my brother's special occasion. They were so busy getting ready for his big event that they had taken so long to get in touch with me. They were more concerned with their perception of his ceremony than with their daughter's injury. Let me be clear before anyone accuses me of jealousy or admiring my brother. I don't find it hard to see why they would be proud of him. I am aware that he is gifted and has put a lot of effort into all that he has accomplished. He has always been the golden child, which is the problem. Since we were little, he has received nothing but acclaim for everything he does, while I have largely gone unnoticed. He currently works for a large corporation and is really successful. Therefore, this award meant a lot to him. However, I was actually convalescing from surgery, and a visit or even a phone call to check on me would have been the very least they could have done. I only wanted my parents to be concerned about me, and that was about all I was asking for. They didn't even blink an eyelash when I could have died that day. I was angry and humiliated. I attempted but was unable to explain my parents' actions. I then made the decision to contact them and let them know how offended I was. I texted them to express my disbelief that they prioritized my brother's prize over my well-being. I expressed my pain at them not even checking in on me. I didn't have to wait long for an answer. For the first time since the accident, and to be honest, I wish they hadn't responded. Their words simply made me feel worse. At first, they attempted to defend their behavior by claiming that they couldn't miss my brother's award because it was a once-in-a-lifetime accomplishment. I informed them that if they had only taken the time to come see me sooner, they wouldn't have missed the event at all. After a while, they gave up trying to argue with me and told me that it was pointless to waste time coming to see me while my brother was out there making the family proud. That hurt more than words can express. It seemed like they only considered me as an afterthought. I wish I could say that their behavior astonished me, but it has always been like this. My brother was perfect as a child. Every action he took was praised. Every accomplishment he made, whether it was a scholarship, a fancy job, or perfect grades, was celebrated. In the meantime, I was constantly in the background. It was never good enough even when I performed well. Every error I made was viewed as a disaster, and I never received the same level of help. I had the impression that they had already determined I was a failure, and that nothing I did would change their thoughts. A week after my brother's awards ceremony, my parents unexpectedly arrived at the hospital. I was initially perplexed because, following our last talk, I had given up on contacting them. I knew my parents well enough to understand that they weren't worried when they came to see me. They arrived with phony smiles on their faces and a bouquet in their hands. They made an effort to strike up a conversation about how I was doing, but it was obvious that their thoughts were elsewhere. I advised them to just say what was on their mind, because I could tell that whatever they were thinking about was going to irritate me. The fact that they showed so little concern for my survival was offensive enough. I didn't need their phony pity. I didn't have to exert much effort when my mother learned that my brother had been arrested for fraud at his company. She burst into tears. It turned out that my brother was at the heart of a huge fraud scheme that was discovered by the corporation he worked for. He had been directing funds into his personal investments by falsifying the company's accounts. Following an internal investigation, everything was turned over to the police, and he was apprehended after a co-worker alerted the superiors. He is currently being charged with major offenses like wire fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. My parents had apparently already spent a large portion of their cash on hiring attorneys for him. They came to me because they didn't have enough money left to pay his bail. They asked me to use the money I had saved up from my work as a project manager at it business to help him out. Additionally, they asked whether I knew anyone who could help in any manner or pull some strings. I had the impression that I was merely a tool to clean up my brother's mess, not even their daughter. I continued to experience mental and physical pain. It was unbelievable to me that they would turn to me for assistance after everything. It was like being slapped across the face. When I was lying in my hospital bed after surgery, afraid and alone, they didn't give a damn. But now that their favorite child was in danger, they needed me. I felt bad about it. Perhaps I ought to have helped for the benefit of my family. The other side of me, though, was angry. The same brother who has always had everything handed to him, why should I save him? My parents have always protected him, so he has never experienced any repercussions. Now they expect me to do the same. I informed them that I would not assist. I said that even if I did have the money, I wouldn't feel obligated to help him out. I made it obvious who they cared about more and reminded them that they hadn't even come to see me. Yet they insisted that I was being self-centered and that families should be together. I couldn't get myself to care. Even though they said I would regret not helping my brother, to be honest, my brother has always taken precedence over me. I was never enough for them, no matter how hard I tried. They wanted me to simply forget all the times they disregarded me, left me out, and made me feel unimportant. Now that they needed something from me, I felt in control of the situation for the first time in my life. I'm laying in my hospital bed right now, feeling a mixture of anger and remorse since I said no. My parents haven't spoken to me, and I know they're upset, but I simply can't bring myself to care any longer. I'm done trying to gain their approval. I've wasted too much time standing up to my parents after everything they've done to me and not helping my brother. They keep repeating that family should always remain together, therefore I feel like I might be the villain. However, the way they have treated me throughout my life, and particularly now, is something I simply cannot get over. I feel like I've had enough, but I'm not sure what to do next. Update. Hello, everyone. First off, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for all the support and encouragement I received after my initial post. Honestly, I wasn't expecting such an overwhelming response. It has been a difficult couple of weeks, and your messages really helped me clarify my thoughts and reinforce my decision. The advice and kindness I received were eye-opening, and I'm truly grateful to have had this community to turn to. I've been out of the hospital for a few days now, and the physical recovery process is slow but steady. I'm still dealing with a lot of pain from my leg injury and the emotional toll of everything that's happened, but I'm in a much better place than I was when I first wrote the post. I'm starting to regain my strength. There's been a lot of fallout since I last wrote. I'll start with the most significant piece of news. My brother was eventually released on bail. However, this doesn't mean his troubles are over by any means. The fraud case he's entangled in is far from resolved. The investigation is still ongoing, and based on everything I've heard, it's looking like the charges against him are serious. He's been charged with wire fraud, embezzlement, and forgery crimes that carry severe penalties. His company seems to have taken a very hard stance on this, and the likelihood of him keeping his job is extremely slim. To say that he's in trouble would be an understatement. When my parents called me and told me they'd arranged his bail, I was in complete shock. They seemed to expect me to celebrate that he was getting out of jail, like this was some grand relief for the family. But all I felt was a deep sense of resentment. For years, my brother has been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. And now, despite the severity of his actions, they were bending over backwards to get him out of trouble. They didn't even acknowledge how I was still recovering from my accident, both physically and emotionally. I was literally fighting for my life in a hospital bed, but they were too preoccupied with saving him. In the days that followed, I made the decision to distance myself. My parents have tried calling me a few times since then, but I've been avoiding their calls. Honestly, I'm at a point where I just don't have the energy to engage with them anymore. It's not that I'm completely heartless, it's that I've spent my whole life trying to earn their love and approval, only to have them continuously prioritize my brother's needs over mine. The emotional exhaustion from trying to make them see me, trying to make them care about me in the same way they care about him, has taken its toll. I can't keep putting myself in a position where I'm emotionally drained and disappointed every time I interact with them. So I've taken a step back, and while it's painful, I believe it's necessary for my own well-being. The fallout hasn't just been with my parents, though. My family is fractured right now. Some of my relatives, especially those who have witnessed the dynamic between me and my brother, have come forward to express their support. A few of them have even said that they understand why I'm standing my ground, and some have even apologized for the way I've been treated over the years. These moments have been both comforting and eye-opening for me. For the longest time, I believed I was overreacting or being unreasonable. But hearing from these relatives has reminded me that the way I've been treated is not okay. It's a huge relief to know that I'm not alone in seeing the bigger picture. I've always felt like the odd one out in my family, and hearing these validating words has helped me come to terms with that. I've also started reflecting a lot on my own life and the patterns I've allowed myself to fall into. For most of my adult life, I've bent over backward trying to keep the peace and fit into a mold that my parents had set for me, one where I was never enough. I've worked hard to prove my worth to them, to show them that I could be successful and capable, just like my brother. But after all this, I've come to realize that no matter what I did, it was never going to be enough for them. They've already made their choice, and that choice has always been him. No matter how much I accomplish, no matter how many good things I do, I will never be able to earn their approval in the way he has. And that's something I need to accept. So I've made a big decision. I'm going to start seeing a therapist. I've never really sought out professional help before, but I think it's time. The emotional weight of all these years of feeling neglected and overlooked by my parents has been immense. I need to understand how to manage these feelings of resentment and frustration, and more importantly, how to heal from them. Therapy feels like a crucial step in that process. I want to work through the feelings of betrayal I've been carrying, as well as the fear of being abandoned by the people I thought I could rely on. I'm not sure where this will take me, but I'm hopeful that it will help me understand myself better and guide me in making more empowered decisions going forward. I also want to address something else that's been on my mind since the last update, the idea of family loyalty. For a long time, I believed that family was supposed to come first, that blood was thicker than water, and that no matter what happened, you were supposed to stand by your family. But after all that's happened, I'm questioning that notion. If family loyalty means sacrificing my own well-being and happiness for the sake of people who have consistently disregarded my needs, then I no longer subscribe to that belief. I've spent so many years sacrificing my own needs, putting myself last, and bending over backward to please my parents. And for what? For a few moments of praise that never lasted, for a few fleeting words of validation that were quickly overshadowed by my brother's accomplishments. I've come to realize that true loyalty to myself is far more important than being loyal to people who don't see me for who I truly am. In some ways I feel guilty. There's this nagging voice in my head that says I should have helped my brother, that I should be the bigger person. But when I really sit with it, I know I made the right choice. I've given my parents and my brother countless chances to show up for me, and they've failed me every single time. This time, I needed to take a stand for myself. I can't keep being the one who is expected to clean up their messes, to fix things, and to take on the emotional burden of their poor decisions. I've spent so much of my life doing that, and I'm just done. Looking forward, I'm taking things one day at a time. I don't know what the future holds with my family, but I do know that I need to focus on myself now. For the first time in a long time, I'm prioritizing my own well-being. It feels good to reclaim that power, even though it's scary. And even though I'm still processing a lot of my emotions, I feel stronger than I have in years. Thank you again to everyone who reached out and shared their thoughts. It's been incredibly helpful, and I'm sure it will continue to be as I move forward. This journey of healing is just beginning, but I'm ready to take it one step at a time. Update: it's been a few months since my last update, and I'm not sure how to describe the whirlwind my life has been in. Things have shifted both internally and externally, and still I'm holding on to the belief that I'm moving in the right direction. After everything that's happened with my family and my brother, I've spent a lot of time thinking about who I am. This journey of emotional healing has been one of the hardest things I've ever done, and I don't think I can say I'm done with it, but I am certainly in a very different place than I was a few months ago. Let me start with my family because, honestly, I don't think there's been a moment in my life that's been more emotionally taxing than the recent months with them. It's like a never-ending series of tests that I didn't ask for. After my last decision to cut ties and refuse to help my brother with his legal situation, I thought things would calm down. I thought that maybe, just maybe, they would see that I wasn't the person to be used anymore. But if there's one thing I've learned over the last few months, it's that my family isn't really interested in understanding my perspective. They're still stuck in their own narrative, one where my brother is their shining star, and I'm just the background noise. They couldn't even see how deeply hurt I was by everything that happened. It was my mom who tried to contact me first. She came to my apartment unannounced, just like the last time. I wasn't expecting her, and to be honest, I wasn't sure I was ready to face her. I had spent weeks processing what had happened between us, what I had said, what they had done. I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to hear the same old excuses, the same justifications that always seemed to make my feelings secondary. When she showed up, she had that look in her eyes, the look of someone who's trying to hold it together but is on the edge of breaking down. She stood in the doorway for a moment, her hands clutching the straps of her purse like they were the only thing keeping her steady. I didn't invite her in. I just stood there waiting for her to speak first. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice soft, tentative. "Please." I could hear the cracks in her voice, and it made me want to step back. I didn't want to hear the guilt tripping. I didn't want to go through the cycle of her telling me how much she loves me and how much she just wants things to go back to normal. But I stood still. "Talk about what?" I asked, keeping my tone even though I could feel my heart racing. I didn't know if I was ready to hear what she had to say. Part of me just wanted to shut the door and walk away, but I knew that wouldn't resolve anything either. She sighed, her eyes searching mine, for something, maybe for some sign that I would soften, that I would give in. "I know you're angry," she began, her words slow, measured. "But your father and we've been through so much with your brother, we just didn't know who else to turn to. I've been thinking about everything, and I see now that we've made mistakes. You were in the hospital, and we should have been there for you. I should have been there for you." I looked at her, not sure how to respond. It was all so rehearsed. She had said those words before. She had apologized before. But the fact that it took so long for her to come to this realization, that it had taken me being hospitalized and my brother getting arrested for fraud for her to even recognize how I felt, just felt like too little too late. It was the same pattern. She always apologized when things blew up in her face, but the apology never felt genuine. It felt like she was apologizing more to ease her own guilt than to truly understand me. "I'm sorry, Mom, but it's not enough," I said, my voice calm but firm. I surprised myself with the calmness. Maybe it was because I had already accepted the fact that my parents were never going to truly see me in the way I wanted them to. You don't get to apologize after everything. You don't get to come here and pretend like everything's okay now because you feel bad about my brother's mess. I needed you when I was lying in that hospital bed. I needed you when I didn't know if I was going to survive." Her eyes welled up with tears, but I didn't feel the urge to console her. I couldn't. I was too tired of doing that for her. "I never meant to make you feel like you weren't enough," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But I see now that I did, and I'm so sorry." The thing is, the apology didn't change anything. It was just words. I couldn't allow myself to get caught up in them again. I had to be strong for myself, not for her. "I've been hurt too many times," I said, finally finding the words that had been building up inside me for years. "I'm tired, Mom. I'm tired of being the one who's always there to pick up the pieces when everything falls apart. I'm tired of being the invisible one. I'm not your second choice. I'm not your backup plan." There was a long silence between us, and for the first time in a long while I felt like I was being heard, like I was finally speaking the truth about how I felt. My mom didn't say anything after that. She just stood there, eyes filled with sadness and regret. But she didn't argue. She didn't try to defend herself. Eventually, I said, "I'm done, Mom. I need to take care of myself now. I need to figure out who I am without constantly trying to earn your love. I can't keep doing this. I'm sorry, but I just can't." She nodded slowly, as if it was the hardest thing she had ever done. And then quietly she left. As for my brother, I haven't heard from him in weeks. After he was arrested, I assumed that he would try to reach out to me, to apologize, to beg for help. But that never happened. It's almost as if he doesn't know what to say, or maybe he's too proud to admit that he was wrong. Maybe he's still in denial about the whole situation. Either way, I'm not the one who is going to extend the olive branch. I won't lie, I still think about him sometimes. I still feel some sense of responsibility for him. After all, he's my brother, and no matter how much he's hurt me over the years, I can't just turn off that part of myself that cares about him. but I also know that he has to face the consequences of his actions, and I can't be the one to bail him out of every mess he creates. He's made his bed, and now he has to lie in it. On a personal note, I'm doing better. Much better than I was before all of this blew up. I've been continuing therapy, and it's been incredibly helpful. I'm learning to put myself first, to stop blaming myself for things that were never my fault. I'm learning to acknowledge the pain I've been carrying for so long and to slowly work through it. It's not easy, but I'm making progress. I'm learning to accept that I am worthy of love, of respect, and of kindness, not just from others, but from myself. I'm also starting to build a stronger support system outside of my family. I've reconnected with old friends, people who I've lost touch with over the years. It feels good to have people in my life who truly see me for who I am. I've made a conscious effort to surround myself with people who uplift me, who make me feel valued, and who understand the importance of mutual support. And for the first time in a long while, I feel like I'm allowed to exist without constantly trying to prove my worth. I've started pursuing things that excite me, things that have been on the back burner for years. I've been working on a personal project that I've always wanted to do but never had the courage to start. I'm taking small steps every day to reclaim my own life and to stop living in the shadows of my family's expectations. It's a long road ahead, but I'm hopeful. I'm ready to keep moving forward. Thanks again to everyone who has supported me on this journey. Your words have meant more to me than I can say, and I'm so grateful for this community. I'll keep you all updated, but for now I'm just focusing on myself and my own healing. It feels like a new chapter, and I'm excited to see where it leads.